Ananya and Priya trusted Dr. Aaron Cole with their hearts, but his double life would shatter everything they believed and expose a secret that no one saw coming. Dr. Aaron Cole appeared to live the kind of life many people admired from a distance. In Miami's fast-paced medical world, he was known as a dependable emergency doctor who rarely missed a shift and never lost his composure under pressure. Long nights at the hospital and sudden schedule changes were normal for him, and no one questioned them. His colleagues believed his dedication came from a deep sense of responsibility, and patients trusted him without hesitation. Outside the hospital, he kept his personal life quiet, sharing very little and avoiding attention. Aaron lived in a modern apartment close to the hospital, choosing convenience over luxury. Neighbors saw him come and go in scrubs, often late at night or before sunrise. He spoke politely but briefly, always appearing tired yet focused. To them, he was another hard-working doctor sacrificing comfort for service. His calm behavior and controlled routines made him seem reliable and grounded, someone who valued order and discipline above all else. Behind this carefully maintained image, Aaron carried a constant need for control. Every part of his day followed a strict pattern, from meals to phone calls to travel plans. He believed structure kept chaos away, and he trusted his own intelligence to manage anything unexpected. This mindset shaped how he handled relationships as well, treating trust as something to manage rather than earn. He believed that as long as no one asked the wrong questions, his life would remain perfectly balanced. What no one around him understood was that this balance was built on deception. The long hours, the sudden trips, and the emotional distance were not signs of professional commitment alone. They were the foundation of a hidden life that required precision to survive. Even in moments of rest, Aaron's mind stayed alert, constantly calculating risks. The perfect image he projected was not accidental. It was the first layer of a secret that, once exposed, would destroy everything. Aaron's life was divided not by chance, but by careful design. What appeared to be a demanding medical career was actually the cover that allowed him to maintain two completely separate marriages. In Miami, his life revolved around Ananya, an Indian nurse who believed she had married a devoted doctor with an exhausting schedule. Aaron presented himself as emotionally reserved but loyal, blaming stress and night shifts for any distance. To Ananya, his absences felt like sacrifice, proof of a man building a future for them both. Hundreds of miles away in Houston, Aaron lived an almost identical version of himself with Priya. There, he claimed Miami was only a temporary assignment and spoke of long-term plans that always seemed just out of reach. He adjusted his personality slightly, becoming more attentive and reassuring, shaping himself into whatever each woman needed. Neither marriage overlapped in daily life, and Aaron relied on geography to keep the truth buried. He tracked calendars obsessively, memorizing holidays, hospital rosters, and immigration deadlines. Each wife had a separate phone number saved under different names, and each received carefully timed calls and messages. Financially, he split his income into accounts that never crossed paths. Even gifts were chosen with precision, making sure nothing could be traced back to the other life. To Aaron, this was not recklessness but strategy. He convinced himself that as long as both women felt secure, no harm was being done. He ignored the emotional cost and focused only on maintaining control. The success of his double life fed his confidence, making him believe he was untouchable. But this confidence blinded him to a simple truth. A system built entirely on lies does not fail slowly. It collapses all at once, without warning. Aaron treated his deception like a professional operation, believing that organization alone could defeat truth. Every detail of his life was designed to prevent overlap. He owned 2 cars registered in different cities and kept separate wardrobes to match each environment. His travel patterns were planned weeks in advance, often booking flights at odd hours to avoid recognition. To anyone watching closely, his movements might have seemed excessive, but no one ever looked that closely. Technology played a major role in maintaining his secret. Aaron used encrypted apps, hidden email accounts, and cloud storage protected by layers of passwords. Phone notifications were disabled, and call logs were erased daily. He avoided shared family plans and never allowed location tracking. Even his social media presence was carefully limited, showing nothing beyond generic images that revealed no personal connections. Emotionally, Aaron controlled information with the same precision. He revealed only fragments of himself, never allowing either woman to see the full picture. He discouraged deep questions by appearing overwhelmed and exhausted. When doubts surfaced, he redirected them toward work stress or future promises. Over time, this pattern trained both women to accept uncertainty as normal. What Aaron failed to recognize was that control creates isolation. By keeping everyone at a distance, he left no room for natural explanations when things changed. His system worked only as long as nothing unexpected happened. A delayed flight, a sudden schedule shift, or an unplanned decision could destroy years of planning. The more complex his system became, the more fragile it grew. The danger was not discovery by investigation, but by coincidence. All it took was one unplanned moment for the walls between his two lives to collapse. Aaron believed intelligence and discipline would protect him forever. In reality, those same traits pushed him toward overconfidence, setting the stag. As the 5th wedding anniversary with Ananya approached, Aaron began planning what he believed would be a controlled and meaningful celebration. He chose a luxury resort in Miami, convinced that careful timing would keep everything safe. To him, the trip was more than a romantic gesture. It was a way to reinforce trust and silence any quiet doubts that had been growing over months of emotional distance. He relied on routine, believing predictability was still on his side. Ananya was told the trip was a reward for her patience and support through his demanding career. She saw it as a sign that their marriage was moving into a calmer phase. Aaron encouraged her to take time off work and pack lightly, framing the weekend as a simple escape. Every detail, from the room selection to the payment method, was planned to avoid detection. He believed Houston was completely out of the picture. At the same time, Aaron assumed Priya was committed to a long hospital shift schedule that would keep her in Texas. He had reviewed her calendar weeks earlier and trusted that nothing had changed. This assumption became his greatest mistake. Unbeknownst to him, Priya had sensed growing distance and emotional gaps. Instead of questioning him directly, she decided to plan her own surprise. Priya quietly requested leave, telling no one except her supervisor. She booked a flight to Miami, hoping to reconnect and remind Aaron of their bond. She believed the timing was perfect, not realizing she was stepping into a trap created by years of lies. 2 anniversaries, meant to celebrate commitment, were now set on a collision course. For the first time in years, Aaron's control depended not on planning, but on luck. And luck was about to disappear. The weekend unfolded with a sense of quiet tension that Aaron did not immediately recognize. Ananya arrived in Miami filled with anticipation, believing the trip marked a new beginning. The resort atmosphere, the warm air, and the promise of uninterrupted time together reinforced her trust. Aaron maintained his calm exterior, confident that his calculations were still holding everything in place. Across the city, Priya landed only hours later. She moved through the airport unnoticed, carrying the excitement of an unexpected reunion. Her plans were simple and spontaneous, driven by emotion rather than logic. She had no reason to believe anything was wrong. To her, Miami was still just another city tied to Aaron's work, not the center of a hidden life. Small cracks appeared almost immediately. A shared credit card notification surfaced at the hotel front desk. A reservation name was questioned. A medical conference excuse did not align with a resort booking. These moments seemed insignificant on their own, but together they formed a pattern that could not be ignored. Technology, once Aaron's strongest shield, began working against him. As hours passed, confusion replaced certainty. Messages went unanswered. Calls were delayed. Schedules that once fit perfectly no longer made sense. Both women felt something was off, though neither yet understood why. The city that had safely separated Aaron's lives was now shrinking, pulling those lives closer together with every passing minute. Aaron attempted to manage the situation remotely, but control slipped faster than he expected. His careful system was not designed for proximity. Miami had become the point where two realities overlapped. The lies that survived distance could not survive closeness. What he believed was a routine anniversary weekend was rapidly turning into an exposure he could not prevent. The truth emerged not through confrontation, but through evidence that spoke louder than explanations. Ananya noticed inconsistencies that no longer felt accidental. Hotel documents revealed dates that did not align with what she had been told. A second set of travel records appeared in an email account Aaron had forgotten to log out of. What once looked like professional secrecy now resembled deliberate concealment. Each discovery stripped away another layer of trust. At the same time, Priya uncovered her own proof. Legal paperwork stored online showed a marriage certificate issued years earlier, long before her own wedding. Financial records exposed shared expenses tied to another household. The realization arrived slowly but firmly, replacing confusion with certainty. The man she believed she knew had constructed an entire life parallel to her own. The weight of the discovery was overwhelming. Both women replayed years of memories, now tainted by manipulation. Moments of affection felt calculated. Long absences no longer carried noble explanations. What hurt most was not only the betrayal, but the precision with which it had been executed. This was not a mistake or moment of weakness. It was a sustained decision repeated every day. As the evidence accumulated, there was no room left for denial. Two marriages existed simultaneously, supported by lies and distance. The surprise trips, meant to celebrate commitment, instead revealed a carefully hidden truth. The realization connected two strangers through shared deception, even though they had never met before. By the end of that day, Aaron's secret life was no longer secret. The walls separating his worlds had collapsed under their own weight. What he had spent years controlling unraveled in hours. The exposure did not come with drama or shouting, but with quiet certainty. A double life, once protected by silence, had been fully exposed, leaving no path back to the illusion he had built. The exposure of Aaron's secret sent shockwaves far beyond the resort. What had been a private betrayal quickly expanded into a public reckoning. Legal filings began almost immediately, forcing timelines, documents, and financial records into official review. Once those records surfaced, the scale of the deception became undeniable. Years of carefully separated lies were now merged into a single trail of evidence. The hospital where Aaron worked was alerted through legal channels. Administrators began an internal review, not because of personal conduct alone, but because the deception involved false information tied to employment benefits and travel claims. Colleagues who once praised his discipline now questioned how much they had truly known. Trust eroded rapidly, and Aaron was placed on administrative leave as investigations progressed. Immigration authorities also became involved. Both marriages had required legal documentation, and discrepancies triggered deeper scrutiny. Sponsorship filings, address histories, and timelines raised serious concerns. What Aaron once considered minor paperwork now carried significant legal consequences. Each form he had signed became another reminder of the risks he believed he could manage. Socially, the collapse was complete. Friends distanced themselves, unsure how to process the revelation. The respect that once surrounded Aaron dissolved into disbelief. The identity he had built as a responsible professional could not survive the weight of proven dishonesty. Silence replaced admiration. For Ananya and Priya, the aftermath was painful but clarifying. The confusion that haunted the exposure of Aaron's secret them for years now had a name. Betrayal replaced doubt, but certainty also brought strength. The truth, once hidden behind routines and excuses, had finally taken control away from the one who abused it. Aaron's life did not fall apart slowly. It unraveled all at once, leaving consequences that no planning could undo. The legal process moved forward with precision, mirroring the structure Aaron once used to hide his secret. Investigators focused on the intent behind his actions rather than emotional fallout. The existence of two valid marriages in different states raised immediate red flags. Evidence showed that the deception was not accidental, but sustained through planning, false statements, and deliberate omissions. Financial records revealed patterns of manipulation. Income was divided to support two households, with benefits claimed under conflicting marital statuses. Authorities examined whether professional privileges had been used to facilitate travel and concealment. What Aaron believed were harmless adjustments were now categorized as intentional misrepresentation. Each transaction strengthened the case against him. Medical licensing boards were notified as part of standard procedure. While the case did not involve patient harm, the findings questioned his ethical judgment. The board temporarily suspended his license pending review, citing loss of public trust. Years of training and professional status were suddenly at risk, not because of medical failure, but because of personal dishonesty. Court filings outlined the emotional and legal damage caused. Bigamy charges carried serious consequences, including financial penalties and possible imprisonment. The law treated the situation as fraud rather than a private marital dispute. Intent mattered, and the evidence showed clear intent over several years. As hearings continued, Aaron's presence in the medical community faded. His name, once associated with reliability, became linked to deception. The courtroom replaced the emergency room as the place where his future would be decided. Control, the very thing he relied on, now belonged entirely to the legal system. The man who mastered secrecy found himself powerless under full transparency. With the legal case underway, attention slowly shifted toward the lives left behind by the deception. For Ananya and Priya, the end of the marriage did not immediately bring peace, but it did bring clarity. The confusion and self-doubt that once consumed them began to fade as the responsibility for the betrayal was placed where it belonged. What had felt like personal failure was now understood as manipulation. Both women faced difficult decisions about their futures. Careers that once revolved around shared plans had to be rebuilt independently. They leaned on professional support and close community ties, finding strength in routine and purpose. Nursing, the profession that first connected them to Aaron, became a source of stability rather than pain. Work offered structure at a time when their personal lives felt uncertain. Over time, resilience replaced shock. Small victories marked progress, from securing independent housing to reclaiming personal goals that had been postponed. The emotional recovery was uneven, but it was real. Each step forward weakened the hold of the past. The power imbalance that once defined the relationship no longer existed. Their experiences also carried a broader impact. By sharing their stories through legal channels and support networks, they help highlight how authority and trust can be misused. Others recognized familiar patterns and found the courage to question their own situations. What began as private suffering gained public meaning. The collapse of Aaron's double life did not define Ananya and Priya's identities. Instead, it became a turning point. Survival turned into growth, and betrayal into awareness. While the damage could not be erased, it no longer controlled their futures. The truth, once devastating, became the foundation for rebuilding lives on honesty and independence. Aaron Cole's carefully constructed world ended not with confrontation or violence, but with total collapse. The life he had managed through schedules, secrets, and control was dismantled piece by evidence, coincidence, and legal scrutiny. His professional reputation, built over decades, evaporated as authorities, colleagues, and the public absorbed the scale of his deception. The man who once seemed untouchable now faced consequences he could neither negotiate nor escape. Every system he had relied on, technology, distance, calendars, had failed when the unexpected occurred. Two marriages, separated by hundreds of miles, overlapped in a single weekend, exposing years of manipulation in hours. The image of a disciplined, devoted doctor crumbled under the weight of truth. What he had considered a harmless balancing act became a criminal and ethical liability. Aaron's personal and professional life was irreparably damaged. His medical license remained suspended pending further investigation, and legal penalties for bigamy and fraud loomed. Friends and colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling or unable to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the reality revealed by evidence. Social networks that once offered support instead reflected disbelief and judgment. Meanwhile, Ananya and Priya began lives freed from deception. The trauma of betrayal was real, but the exposure of the truth gave them power to rebuild. Both women reclaimed independence, emotional stability, and professional focus. Their stories, though painful, became warnings of the dangers of trust placed in secrecy and authority. Aaron's double life serves as a stark reminder. No matter how carefully constructed, a world built on lies is fragile. Secrets eventually surface. Coincidences unravel even the most meticulous plans, and control belongs not to the manipulator, but to truth itself. In the end, the man who thought he could manage everything lost everything instead, leaving a caution.